you get all excited about the title of the video. I just want to let you know that this isn't the definitive or most efficient way of putting Lego layers on the driver, but it's rather a collection of ideas to help you get inspiration, maybe for some possibly better ideas. So if you know anything about bays and the Lego Beyblade community, you should know that these bays are trying to, kinda mimic the actual bays with the system and the spinning and whatnot. And so we can also include the real bay parts as part of the Lego or vice versa. We're not worried about the layer too much since the whole point is to have a Lego layer. And either way, you can put Lego drivers, which is in this video up here. Moving on to the disc, this isn't that hard to add on, especially with the giant hole in the middle. The only thing that's a bit of trouble are these prongs, but overall pretty simple. And then finally, we have the driver, which is probably the hardest due to the spring and just the overall shape of how it is. So while I was messing around with some parts and stuff, I found that this, a 2x1 with a bar handle up, perfectly fits into the driver and twists into place in these grooves. So if this was a bursting mechanism, this is attached to the layer, then when it's pushed and it gets out of that, then it'll just pop right off. So adding the disc, we get basically most of the parts to the bay. So that means if we could figure out how to attach a Lego layer to these, that means we could have a fully functional Lego layer compatible with a real driver and a disc. But of course, notice how I said if. I haven't really found that great of a way to somehow attach Legos to these, so let's go over a few possible options. First of all, we could try adding brackets like these to get a common stud direction, for example, like on the top. But the problem is it doesn't really connect well, like it might be one stud away like this, but it's also kind of like half off, and there's not really a good way to do that. For example, if we use these 2x1 studs that can kind of manipulate around, we can kind of get a good center for our bay. The problem is that, first of all, these are pretty fragile, and this is also pretty tall for a layer. I mean, look at that. Look at how thick that is. So not too practical there. Another thing you can try is hinges, which, as you can see here, keep the two sides together. But the problem is that it doesn't solve the issue of having a central axis to build your design upon. And without that, that means that the whole thing really just doesn't work. Another choice is to utilize these Lego bar designs to keep it together. And while it definitely is better at keeping it together, it still leaves the question of design of the layer in the air. But in the center, they're not perfectly straight here, so there is slight bending, even though you might not be able to see it. Yeah, it's just restricted by the design mostly, though. So at its core, you should still be able to twist this, and then it will come off like that. After that, so far, is kind of what I think is my best way of doing this, but still, it's not just structured enough to be usable that well. So here, I take this 3x3, and you can see these. We're not going to change anything here, but we're going to place it in there using an illegal building technique. It's got a pretty strong connection, but not that strong. I mean, this could kinda easily pop off there. While it is much cleaner than the other ones, it still is limited by just the space of the building, of the base. So like here, these parts kinda limit the brackets of how far you can build outwards. And here the prongs prevent you from building too far down. So overall, it's just pretty hard to work with. I mean, a lot of the studs in the center are taken, but it's the best I got so far. And then we come to the last option, the most extreme, using super glue. So with this mechanism right here, if you literally just boop, super glue this right here, then it could give you a lot more design with a standard center and, some brackets facing down. But the downside is it's super glue. I'm assuming that if you're doing this, you really don't want to modify your parts too well, but here super gluing would probably make it at least decent to work with. And even with super glue, the ability to kind of hold it together is doubtful at best. So it could probably be used better in conjunction with more pieces holding it together, or with this method discussed earlier of pushing it like that. Utilizing this, you can get some pretty decent designs in, but it's nothing to really gawk at. So, that's pretty much everything you need to know. I feel like I just really needed to showcase this thing that has a lot of potential, but maybe I just haven't found it yet, and you guys can help me. I mean, this could revolutionize something, but as of now, it's just not that good enough. And yeah, see you guys next time. Lego Bays out.